Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Junk Be Gone, Phoenix Conversions.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you with us today. Tennessee takes it on the chin yesterday against Auburn. We'll discuss the Volunteers and their up and down roller coaster basketball season, but for the most part today, we're going to be focused on spring practice. That opens tomorrow. We've got our own Sports Source depth chart printed up and ready for you to look at, and we'll have guys debate it and talk it position by position, player by player. It's a full breakdown, and we don't have time for me to waste time here at the top. So, first segment of our program brought to you by our friends at Phoenix Conversions, home to the biggest selection of truck, van, and SUV accessories in East Tennessee. They can convert vehicles for your business and work needs, or if you need to make a vehicle handicapped accessible, they do that as well. Make your first call, Phoenix Conversions, when you have any kind of work that you need done on truck, van, or SUV, personal or business. Phoenix Conversions. All right. I want to welcome in the first wave of panelists we have today, and we do have them coming in waves. We have right here former Vol basketball coach Mark Pankratz. We have Mike Strange and Jimmy Himes, two members of the Tennessee Sports Writers Hall of Fame right here. And, of course, you can hear Jimmy Monday through Friday on WNNL, AM, and FM, Sports Animal 99.1. Did I get off your thing? Did I cover that in every way possible? All right. This week was a perfect representation of the Tennessee basketball season. You have the hope and the team's starting to come together. When you go to Kentucky, never saw that one coming. Pull a shocker at number 6 UK this week. Everything looks good. And then you come home, big crowd. With all the stuff in the news right now with coronavirus and everything else, the crowds over there at UT for a lackluster season have been great. And they were there in force yesterday. Unfortunately, the players didn't show up. Auburn and Bruce Pearl, worst situation possible for Barnes, come in here and kick them in the teeth. So you have the high of Kentucky, you have the low of Auburn. It's basically been the season in a nutshell. I'll start this way and work this way. Jimmy, your thoughts on yesterday's performance?
Well, it was a blow for Tennessee and for Rick Barnes. Barnes had said on Thursday, following 2 days after the Kentucky win, that they had a very poor practice, and with the number of players that carried over to the game against Auburn. If you look at what Auburn has done to Tennessee, since Tennessee had that 17-point lead, Auburn has outscored Tennessee by 46 points in the last roughly 54 and a half minutes of game time. That's embarrassing for Tennessee. And I was walking beside a significant donor toward the end of the game, and he was saying, this Bruce Pearl's beaten us 5 in a row. We can't have that. Well, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough for Tennessee.
I want to get back on the Pearl thing here in a second. Mike, your thoughts on the Auburn loss?
Well, Tennessee needs all their parts to be working together, and several of them were not. They didn't get much out of Pons or James yesterday. Didn't get much off the bench again. Fulkerson was there. Bowden was there. I thought Vescovi played, but they're just a fragile team that needs everything working, and Auburn played good.
Barnes and Pearl both said that was probably the best game they've played all year. Naturally, it came at Thompson-Boling Arena.
And just killed Tennessee on the boards. Just killed them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and schematically, obviously, Fulkerson has become the focal point. He's turned into a very good
point.
The focal point. Turned into a very good player, and you could tell that was going to be Pearl's focus, was to try to make it tough on him, wear him out, not allow him to get catches. On the flip side, we didn't really do that with Doherty. Doherty kept getting loose, was their best three-point shooter, their best offensive player, and we didn't change anything up defensively to make it harder for him. And Auburn did play well, but Auburn's got 5 seniors. Tennessee does not. Their seniors stepped up yesterday. Wiley was an impact on the inside, like Mike said, rebounding the basketball. Tennessee didn't get much from the guys that we needed to in order to win against a better team. Auburn is a better team than Tennessee is right now because of their depth, and in large part because of point guard play that Tennessee consistently does not have. You have 9 assists, 11 turnovers, careless turnovers that lead to easy baskets. That's not winning basketball.
And that's what ticks off all fans, though, is Auburn has a better team right now. They had a better team last year, better team this year. Auburn's a terrible program historically. They had the Charles Barkley years, Chuck Person years, and then this. Vol fans look at that and they say, well, what's the difference? Bruce Pearl. Which, we were talking before this show started, which would Tennessee fans rather have, Kentucky or Auburn? Well, historically, the Kentucky win. But now that Pearl is at Auburn, it's the Auburn win, I think. It was what they would have rather had. My question for you is this. We've discussed this in the past. I think Barnes is the safer bet to run a program. There are reports out there that Bruce Pearl has another notice of allegations. It was talked about a couple weeks ago online. Pat Forty reported they have another notice of allegations at Auburn they're going to have to face. That goes with Bruce Pearl. That goes with Auburn. Barnes doesn't have to, you don't worry about that stuff. At the same time, in terms of X's and O's, Pearl pantses him pretty much when they face each other. Is that not fair? I know you just said that senior leadership played a role in it. He hasn't always had the senior team when he's played Rick Barnes. I mean, is he a better X's and O's coach?
I've always said Bruce is, from an X's and O's standpoint, under out of bounds plays, making adjustments within the game, the rah-rah side of getting guys up for a big game. I'd take Bruce up not just against Barnes, against most coaches in the country. I mean, he's that good of a coach. What he can't seem to do is keep himself out of trouble, and that's why I think what we talked about a couple weeks ago, why I think most people would say to take a program, to run a program, you would take Barnes. To win a basketball game, you take Pearl not only over Barnes. Let's take Barnes out of the picture. I think you take Pearl over most coaches throughout the country to win a basketball game.
Look, Rick Barnes, here's the funny thing. When you make $5 million or around about $5 million, you're safe because the athletic director in a school isn't going to fire a guy and pay that kind of buyout. At the same time, when you make $5 million, you're unsafe because fans want more. This Pearl thing starting to become a bigger deal for Rick Barnes, I think. I'm not saying he's in trouble. Don't think he should be in trouble. I was all in favor of paying the money to keep the man last year. At the same time, if they play Auburn twice next year and he falls to 0-7 in his last 7 against Pearl, I think it's starting to get serious. And am I overblowing that?
Well, I'll say this: if they had lost to Auburn on Tuesday and come back and won at Kentucky yesterday, I think we'd be having a very different conversation about Rick Barnes because he was the first Tennessee coach to win twice at Rupp, and the reaction I saw on social media from the Kentucky game was extremely positive about Rick Barnes. So it's what have you done lately? And I mean lately, like in the last 24 hours.
Right.
When you say serious, I think that you would have more people saying, I'd rather have Pearl than Barnes. As far as job security, I don't think that's a factor. And in particular, if you continue to win, and next year Tennessee should be better with a lot of these guys. The one thing that strikes me about Tennessee, and I know the stats are not going to support me on this, Tennessee has one of the better defensive teams in the SEC. Field goal defense, points allowed, etc. But there are times defensively they don't play very well. And I thought yesterday was one of them. Yeah. How do you let Doughty go off for 32 and leave him wide open for the majority of those shots? I don't get that sometimes about their defense.
Although I will say it's hard to find any team that looks the same for 30 games. But you're right. When it's almost like when they're bad, they're very bad. That kind of a setup. Go ahead.
Well, I think the team concept, the way that he has them run practice, the cohesiveness is when they look good. But they're not good outside of Pons. They're not good individual defenders. They're slow of foot. They're not big. They're not physical. And so that way they can look really bad because the guy drives right by them. Right. So that's why I think they're good team defensively. But individually, not very good defensively.
Sort of depends on who's going against them. Some teams make them look worse and take advantage of their weaknesses more than others.
Like Auburn.
Yeah, like Auburn, unfortunately, for Rick Barnes. And I was prepared to do a rah-rah Kentucky segment. I'm still going to do it because I did the research. Somebody tweeted me something. I thought that's a good idea, so I went and looked it up. Let's take a look at the Kentucky stat I've got here. Tennessee's only won up there 7 times since 1960. So in 50 years, they've only won up there 7 times. You see them all listed there. UT coaches with multiple wins in Lexington. John Bender, everyone remembers John Bender. Ray Mears with 4 and Bender with 4. And Rick Barnes with 2, the first guy to win 2 at Rupp Arena, as Jimmy said. 18-91 all-time in Lexington. But here's the stat I thought was interesting. Take a look at the next one. These are all the players, and I went back and looked at all the box scores. These are the players who've won twice at Kentucky. All right. On the left are the guys who actually played in the games. On the right are guys who were at least on 2 teams, like Burt Bertelkamp. He was on the 77 team. He actually played in the 79 game. So 7 guys over there were on the teams. Jalen Johnson, Jacob Fleshman, he's got a claim to fame there. But you look over there, only 10, and only one guy, Terry Crosby, played in 3 wins at Kentucky. No, somebody tweeted me that idea, so I went back and did the research on it. I thought that was pretty cool. But Bowden, Fulkerson, Pons, Johnson, and Fleshman have all been a part of 2 Tennessee wins at UK, which is a very rare thing. There, I ended the segment on a positive. When we come back, we'll talk about the NIT and bring it right back down. We got a lot of spring practice to come. Come on back.